Ladies and gentlemen, it is another week of the news in English, brought to you by DBS Television. Inhabitants of Maroua, far north region of Cameroon, have been without electricity power for over 6 months now. The poor living condition has pushed many to go in for rechargeable solar energy, lamps or generators, bringing another difficulty of being able to buy petrol to be able to use the generators. The Minister of Water and Energy Resources, on a working mission to Maroua, visited some of the sites of electricity supply and water installations, as well as some boreholes, and diagnosed the reasons for the constant cut of electricity power in the town of the country.
The first thing you have to know is that you are facing a very, very serious hydrological problem. That is why you have the lack of production now. And to solve this problem, the head of state decided to move a part of the power plant from Ahala to these three regions. And this is going now. So we must be sure that in the next few days, before the end of January, you have the new megawatt Edua network.
Faced with poor supply of electricity, the Maroua population is also vulnerable to poor supply of potable water, a disturbing situation, especially for pharmacists who need to store drugs in appropriate conditions. The University of Bamenda has graduated its 10th batch of students over the weekend, sending out over 2,500 young Cameroonian graduates into an already tight job market in Cameroon. The ceremony took place in the university campus on Saturday under the strict respect of coronavirus restrictive measures. The graduation ceremony was particularly different from others in the past. Unlike the other years, when the ceremonial ground was filled with the graduating students, their families and friends, this year's ceremony was reserved only to students and administrative authorities of the University of Bamenda. Professor Theresia Nkuo Akenji, Vice-Chancellor of the university, is confident about the quality of students being graduated, both in terms of morals and intellect.
I think we're sending out graduates who have been found worthy both in character and in learning. That's the most important thing. Graduates who are going to live the motto of the University of Bamenda: knowledge, probity and entrepreneurship.
This applies to the thousands of graduates of all levels sent out into the job market, amongst which are HND, bachelors, masters, right up to PhD holders.
We have graduated students right from the HND programs, the BTech, the bachelor's degree, the master's degree, and PhD degrees. And you have heard their GPAs. Fantastic.
Looking at the challenges like the armed conflicts in the region and COVID-19, the students say it was indeed very challenging to brace through the difficulties and be able to obtain their certificate, as the best overall graduating student confirms.
All those things studying became more difficult. Even getting to school at times was really tough, but in all that we had to work really hard, and I had to work so hard and depend on God for support, and that's what has made me to be here today.
The graduates solemnly swore to uphold the knowledge and standards they acquired from the school throughout their years of studies, as they said their graduation vows.
Pledge myself before God and in the presence of this assembly to pass my life in purity and to practice my profession faithfully.
Solemnly pledge myself before God and in the presence of this.
Out of Cameroon, the government of Gabon has adopted a draft constitution in the Council of Ministers over the weekend. According to the draft adopted by the government, Article 13 of the constitution sets the new conditions for the interim president of the republic in the event of a vacancy in power. If the government's plan is finally adopted, the interim head of state will be provided by the President of the Senate, that of the National Assembly, and the Minister of Defense. In the current constitution, the prerogative is vested in the President of the Senate. They equally discussed about the lifetime immunity of the head of state and the appointment of certain senators by the President of the Republic. The government's plan incorporates the notion of temporary unavailability of the President of the Republic. This provision did not exist in the current constitution. It should be remembered that 2 years ago, when President Ali Bongo suffered a stroke, the Constitutional Court did not declare a vacancy in power. It had mentioned a temporary unavailability, which the opposition had strongly contested. In case of temporary unavailability, it is the same trio, that is the Senate, National Assembly, and Minister of Defense, that will act as the President of the country. In another change, which will occur if the reform is adopted, states, according to Article 78, that once the President has left office, he cannot be tried, searched for, detained, or sentenced for acts committed while in office. This draft revision will be sent to Parliament dominated by the ruling party for revision. The opposition coalition in the Democratic Republic of Congo has called for the postponement of the presidential and legislative election in light of growing electoral tensions. Scheduled for December 27, 2020, the postponement was declared on Sunday, December 20, a day after the government accused the group's former leader, ex-President François Bozizé, of trying to stage a coup d'etat. Another coalition of rebel forces called the Coalition of Patriots for Change, CPC, seized control of key routes to the capital, Bangui. The Central African Republic spiraled into conflict in 2013 when then-President François Bozizé was ousted by the Seleka, a rebel coalition drawn largely from the Muslim minority. The coup triggered a bloodbath between the Seleka and so-called anti-Belaka self-defense forces, mainly Christian and animist. The UN has, however, deployed peacekeepers to help maintain calm and ensure credible elections amid the tense political climate in the country. Protests have erupted in Sudan as thousands took to the streets of the capital Khartoum and its twin city, Omdurman, on Saturday, December 19, demanding an acceleration of reforms on the second anniversary of the start of an uprising that ousted Omar el-Bashir. The veteran leader was arrested by the military in April 2019 after months of mass protests against poor economic conditions and Bashir's autocratic three-decade rule. Tensions have largely centered on the Sudanese military's economic assets, over which the civilian-run finance ministry does not have any control. As tensions rise between military and civilian members of Sudan's transitional government, which was set up after el-Bashir's arrest, the activists are calling for the army to make good on the promised reforms. Demonstrators, many of which are the youth and frustrated by what they see as a lack of change amid a dire economic crisis, waved the national flag and carried photographs of people killed during past protests as they marched. The Sudanese government has been struggling with a huge budget deficit and widespread shortages of essential goods, including fuel, bread, and medicine. The leaders of the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD countries, a grouping of 7 East African countries, met on Sunday in Djibouti for the 38th Extraordinary Summit to discuss a number of controversies and urgent issues in the East African region, and particularly the situation in Ethiopia and the recent tensions between Kenya and Somalia. IGAD countries comprise Djibouti, where it has its headquarters, Ethiopia, Kenya, Uganda, Somalia and Sudan, as well as Eritrea, though it has suspended its participation since 2007. The atmosphere of disagreements and tensions between the countries of the region, especially between Somalia and Kenya, loomed over the summit in addition to the Sudanese-Ethiopian border dispute regarding the Fashaga region. Sudanese Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok, current chairman of IGAD, said in a speech before the closed session. In addition to Mr. Hamdok, the summit was attended by the presidents of Djibouti, Ismail Omar Guelleh, that of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, Somalia, Mohamed Abdullahi, and Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. The chairman of the AU Commission, Musa Faki Muhammad, who also attended the summit, called on IGAD members to help Ethiopia deal with the humanitarian crisis triggered by the recent conflict in the breakaway region of Tigray. IGAD Executive Secretary Joaquin Dibwa said that despite all the differences, they are committed to finding solutions to the outstanding issues during the summit. The funeral of the late Burundi President Pierre Buyoya will be held in Mali at a date to be announced later, sources from his family said on Sunday. Buyoya, the former president, died in Paris at the age of 71, relatives said on Friday, just weeks after he resigned as African Union Special Envoy to Mali and the Sahel. In a communique, his wife, children and grandchildren announced that the funeral of the late president will be hosted in Mali, where he and his wife had lived for many years. The family expressed gratitude to the Malian authorities, the African Union Commission, and to all those who offered their support and solidarity. Buyoya served as president twice, from 1987 to 1993, and then from 1996 to 2003. He first rose to power through a coup in 1987 after overthrowing Jean-Baptiste Bagaza, before stepping down after losing the 1993 vote election to Ndadaye. In October, he was convicted in absentia by the Supreme Court for killing Melchior Ndadaye, the country's first democratically elected president, whose death in 1993 after just 3 months in office triggered a 10-year civil war which claimed at least 300,000 lives. Announcing his resignation, Buyoya said he needed time to focus on legal battles back home following his trial in absentia and sentencing to life in prison. Buyoya's passing comes just 6 months after the death of Pierre Nkurunziza, aged 55. Out of Africa, Brexit talks continued this Monday after negotiations failed to reach an agreement over the weekend, passing the Sunday deadline set by the European Parliament for the UK and the EU to agree on a British exit trade deal, as a senior British government source described them as difficult because of the significant differences in position. Members of the European Parliament had set a deadline of midnight on Sunday to study and ratify any agreed text so it can come into law on January 1. With less than 2 weeks before Britain leaves the EU's orbit, the two sides once again failed to reach consensus, with the issue of fishing being the main stumbling block. Both sides are asking the other to move to secure a deal and safeguard trade from tariffs and quotas, but so far, neither one has gone far enough for a breakthrough. A European source confirmed that the expected talks to resume this Monday, with neither side wanting to back down or end the talks. Britain left the EU on January 31 and has been on a transition period that expires at the end of the year, when Britain will definitively leave the bloc's customs office and single market. The EU wants to be able to impose trade barriers in case Britain changes its regulations in the future and undercuts the bloc's market of 450 million customers. London, on its part, wants to be able to set its own regulations and have the right to respond if the other side changes its rules. On fisheries, the EU also wants the right to retaliate if Britain pushes EU vessels out of its waters. London says it will become an independent coastal state from 2021 with full control of its waters, but is open to discussions on a possible transition period for EU boats. Several European Union nations have announced a ban on flights from the UK in a bid to stop a new strain of coronavirus sweeping across southern England from establishing a strong foothold on the continent. A good number of them, amongst which are France, Germany, the Netherlands, Belgium, Austria and Italy, have all imposed restrictions on UK travel after British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said Christmas shopping and gatherings in southern England must be cancelled because of rapidly spreading infections blamed on the new coronavirus variant. The Netherlands was the first to announce its ban on Sunday, December 20, restricting flights from the UK for at least the rest of the year, while other countries issued a flight ban for 48 hours or 24 hours starting midnight and also halted train links to Britain, including the Eurostar. Germany, which holds the rotating EU presidency, has called a special crisis meeting on Monday to coordinate the response to the virus news amongst the bloc's 27 member states. Beyond Europe, Israel also said it was banning flights from Britain, Denmark and South Africa because those were the countries where the mutation has been found. And in the United States, congressional leaders have reached an agreement on Sunday on a $900 billion package to boost the U.S. economy amid the continued coronavirus pandemic, giving lawmakers a short timetable to review and pass the second largest economic rescue measure in the nation's history. The Senate's top Republican and Democrats said on Sunday that they reached an agreement on a nearly $900 billion package, a deal that would be the second largest economic stimulus in U.S. history, following a $2.3 trillion aid bill passed in March. At long last, we have the bipartisan breakthrough the country has needed, Republican Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said on the Senate floor. More help is on the way, he added. The package includes aid for vaccine distribution and logistics, extra jobless benefits of $300 per week, and a new round of $600 stimulus checks, half the amount provided in checks distributed in March under the CARES Act. It comes as the pandemic accelerates, infecting more than 214,000 people in the country each day. More than 317,000 Americans have already died. Talks had begun in place amid a highly contentious campaign for the U.S. presidency and Donald Trump's subsequent refusal to concede defeat to Democrat Joe Biden. The votes were expected on Monday. Republican and Democratic leaders said the package should have enough support to pass both chambers of Congress. President Donald Trump supports the bill and will sign it into law, White House spokesman Ben Williamson said. That is how we saw it on this edition of the news on DBS TV. Thanks for watching. Programs continue. Have a Merry Christmas in advance.